You all should know it by now. This CLE is being recorded. So right now you still have the time to hop off if you don't want to be on camera. Otherwise, please smile. And having said that, my name is Alexandra Kleinfeld. I am the co-chair of the ADR practice section together with Ann Dalton, who is present as well. Thank you. And I am also a certified circuit civil and family mediator, as well as a qualified arbitrator. We are very, very, very pleased to actually have Karla Campos-Andersen talking to us today and introducing to us a little bit about cultural diversity. So she has, of course, a little bit more background than maybe some others from us in regard to diversity. And a little bit of background from Karla. She was born in Los Angeles, California, but she found her way to Lee County, Florida at a young age. We are very grateful for that, Karla. And since then, she has attended local schools and graduated in 2001, I should say, from Stetson University, and in 2004 from Stetson University College of Law. And upon graduating, Karla wanted to be back in Southwest Florida, so she returned to Lee County, and since then she practices law in the area mainly of marital and family law, but also criminal defense, and she has more than 14 years of experience. Karla has also served as the president of the Lee County Bar Association and was a member of the Executive Council for 5 years. A process which she was nominated and voted in by other attorneys in Lee County, which says a lot. Karla also served as a chair for the Lee County Grievance Committee and was also a member of the Lee County Bar Association Family Law and Criminal Defense Practice sections. She has been a chair of the Personnel Committee and was a member of the Lee County Legal Aid Society for several years. Currently, Karla is a member of the #KindLee and is an active volunteer for the high school mock trial competition. So we are very pleased to have Karla talking to us, especially since there's a time crunch. So thank you for that, Karla. And now I'm turning to you.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see everyone. So first, I'd like to say I am very, 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 very pleased to be here. And when Alex and Anne reached out to me earlier on this year, they had asked me if I could speak on this topic, and I was very honored that they even thought about asking me to do any type of presentation. So it's an honor, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you so much. I see a lot of familiar faces. I had, and some faces that I have not seen in a long time, so that's really neat. Originally, we're attorneys, and so we're supposed to public speak, and especially the type of work that I do, I'm constantly in front of a court and in front of and making arguments. But public speaking is not something that I love to do, so it is still nerve-wracking. But so I added some videos to my presentation. And I'm really, really hoping that they're appropriate. So now that I know that I'm being recorded. So again, thank you guys so much. The topic that I was asked to speak about is acknowledging culture diversity. So the first thing I'm going to do, just because I am not the most tech savvy, is I'm going to play a video because that was the first thing that I was able to do. So remember, we're talking about culture diversity. We're going to be focusing on mediation. This video is not about mediation, but I think you're going to get the gist of it. I hope that it plays.
The English believe it's a slur on your host's food if you don't clear your plate. Whereas the Chinese feel you're questioning their generosity if you do. At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge, which is why we have local banks staffed by local people in over 80 countries across the globe. Okay. HSBC, the world's local bank.
All right. So obviously this gentleman here tried to do his homework, right? He tried to figure out what do the Chinese like, what can I, or I'm sorry, he did not do his homework. He didn't realize that by him slurring and drinking all of this eel soup, that really he was letting the people that he was there with believe that he wasn't satisfied. So they kept bringing a bigger and bigger eel. So let's that not happen to us when we go to court or in mediation. So first, let's talk about what is culture? What is culture diversity? Why is it relevant? Why is it important? Why is this even something we need to be considering at mediation? So culture is what's defined is really a way of life for a entire society. It's the way that they include the arts, their beliefs, their institutions, and it's usually passed down from generation to generation. And it's a group of community, it's a group of people that experience life in a way that it's understood in their world. And so everybody has some type of culture. Even if you don't think you have a culture, there's a culture that you've been raised with. There's a culture that everyone's been raised with, and it kind of follows you around. Why is it important? Why is it even relevant? Well, because especially here in the United States, we live in a country that we have a lot of different cultures, not only the cultures of ethnicity, a lot of people that come here from different countries, but we're also looking at different cultures. We have cultures of just, genders, cultures of religion, cultures of just different countries and different states that intermingle with each other. So it's what we're looking at is a diversity of cultures. That's exactly what we're having here in the United States, is a lot of people coming in from different places, from different understandings, different walks of life, and we're all trying to figure out each other. Now, it used to be that the United States was called a melting pot. And so we would always say, oh, there's so many people that come from all walks of life, from different parts of the world. And so we're all, we all come to the United States and it's all like mixed together. But, melting is, you're basically blending everything together. And that's not necessarily what we typically do here in the United States. Everybody still keeps their cultures, and in these things that are passed down generations never leave. So the new terminology that's being used is a salad bowl. It's a salad bowl. You just throw a whole bunch of things together and just kind of mix it together. I like to call it a kaleidoscope. I think that's much prettier. So it's, again, you just put a whole bunch of shapes, different colors, different textures, you put it in a little scope, you mix it together. And then when you're looking through the glass, you're looking at it and it all falls. Everything works together to create this beautiful picture, but everything still maintains its own unique diversity of what makes them who they are. So when we look at things, sometimes we might say, oh, well, this person looks like me and they're from where I'm from, so they must have the same culture beliefs. But you might find that that's actually not accurate, that sometimes people that looked completely different than you might actually be more inclined to have your same culture beliefs and ideologies. So our profession, with the United States becoming a kaleidoscope, it's just going to trickle down where now all of the professions are going to see an increase in diversion. We're looking at a profession here where we, especially with mediators, you have all walks of life. Everybody that comes in has a different perspective. They come from different backgrounds. And so these tensions that you already are creating or that have already been created, right? Even before they walk in, there's already this tension and you have to somehow alleviate that. Now, now you've got another layer that you have to take into consideration. And so instead of thinking that of like, oh, it's another problem that we have to deal with. We've got to figure out, what people are, what makes each person them and why they're thinking this way. Instead of thinking of it as a problem, I would like to think of it, it's like a really great way to creatively make changes, to creatively sit down and like come up with things that are resolutions for what are the disputants that come in front of us, or the ones that actually are that come in and with their issues. What can we, and again, mediators have like a very unique role. You could basically, a lot of times people reach agreements that are just unique to what they need, what their personalities are. I know that, for example, in my mediations, I've got a lot of clients that are Hispanic. And so Mother's Day is, in the United States, I think we have them. They're usually celebrated like I believe the second or third Sunday of May. Well, in a lot of our cultures, that's not really that important. The Mother's Day is first not in May. It's usually in another month. And really, for the women, we really rather celebrate International Women's Day. For a lot of the Hispanic cultures, like that's more important. And so instead of just already coming up with an idea of like, this is what's going to work for all families, it's really great opportunity if once we sit down and we really figure out what's really important for every individual that comes in front of us, to figure out what's important for them. And then we can there's so much creativity that we can have. Now, how do you get there, right? How do you get to the point that you are having these discussions? Well, first of all is you start with being aware, just being aware of yourselves. So saying that, I'm going to segue. I've got another video I want to show you. All right, another thing not to do at mediation. Again, so going back, what do you have to do is the first thing you have to do is just become self-aware. Knowing that, again, everybody has their own culture. We have our own culture. What is the significance of the culture in ourselves? What makes us who we are? And how does that really play into the work that we do? The culture it's basically the air. It's who we are. There's really no getting away from it. And so really it's a way that we logically give order to the world. This is how we know where we belong and what we should be. It gives us values and attitudes and norms of behavior. And so we're constantly attaching culturally based meaning to what we see, what we hear, what we do. And so it's basically kind of going back to my kaleidoscope analogy. It's this lens, it's this invisible lens that we use really to judge people, and we judge their intelligence, we judge them by their superstitions, by what they believe. And so we're aware of that, and we're aware that that is going to, that comes with the territory of what makes us who we are. Then we're already crossing that bridge. We're on our way to get to the other end of this cultural diversity. So here is, and this happens all the time, even if, you're even speaking the same language, there's always going to be misunderstandings. There's going to be misconceptions of what you're saying. So, but, when you're in a mediation, one of the things, and this actually has happened, is that, for example, I had a mediation case where the clients were allowed, they both wanted to have the opportunity to talk to each other. And the mediator was going to be present, and somehow the attorneys ended up being present, but the attorneys, the mediator we were all sitting on one side and the parties were sitting on the other side. And the parties spoke Spanish, both of the attorneys spoke Spanish. The mediator was the only one that didn't speak Spanish, but the mediator was going to be there just to be like a neutral person. And as the parties were speaking, they became more and more passionate. They were talking louder and louder and louder. But they were actually doing really good. They were actually coming up with resolutions, and they were talking to each other, and they were being respectful. It was just that they were just really like, it was just really loud. And I saw, and the mediator like all of a sudden just got up and like looked at them like, you know, thinking that she was breaking up a fight. And we're like, no, 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 they're just speaking loud. That's just, you know, part of their culture. That's just how that's just what they like, you know, the way that they express with each other. So some of the things, you know, what are some of the things that you can, you know, that I guess that you can look at and realize, okay, these are different ways of cultures. One of the most popular one is looking people in the eye. If you look at somebody in the eye, and especially like in the American culture, that's a sign of respect. That's a sign of truthfulness. That's a sign that you are present and listening, actively listening, actively being there. And any diversion or any looking away means that maybe you're lying or that you're not saying anything. Well, in some cultures, that's actually the opposite. In some cultures, looking somebody in the eye is disrespect, you know, especially if you look at somebody in the eye, if it's a woman or if it's an elder. Actually looking away is more respectful. That seems to be more, it's considered more honest. Nodding, a lot of the times people nod and they're just, you know, actively listening. They're just nodding just to let the other person know that they're being listened to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they agree. Some of the cultures is that nodding is actual, yeah, I agree. This is exactly. Speaking loudly, again, is sometimes considered in some cultures that people are fighting, and a lot of the times the culture is just that this is just their way of expressing feelings. One situation that I ran into recently was in some cultures, you know, the law is in a lot of the attorneys, I think in a case, in a personal injury case, they will, you know, you don't want to accept responsibility. So there's no sorries right in the beginning of these cases. And so you go in these mediations, and sometimes what the other side wants is just a sorry, you know, like they don't really care about the outcome. They don't really care about the money. It's just acknowledging that the other person is sorry. And that's important for them. That's important for their culture. And so these are just things to be aware of. Every culture, like I said, is different. And these are all conversations that should be have as to like, what is it? What's the purpose? What is the most important thing that you want coming out of mediation? And it might just be simple as, I just want a sorry. Now, so one of the things that I liked, you know, why I was happy that I was asked to do this presentation is because as I am doing these presentations, I'm learning. I myself am learning. And so as I was digging into this culture diversity, sometimes I just take it for granted because I am, you know, from a different culture that I, you know, have certain ideas, but they're just what they are. And I don't really realize why they're the way they are. But as I was looking at this, I realized that there's really there's two divisions of cultures. There's a individualist and then there's a collectivist. So the individualist is what the law is here in the United States. It's considered good. Individualistic cultures, they're self-reliant, they're independent. An individual takes the center stage. Independence is highly valued. Being dependent upon others is often considered shameful or embarrassing. People tend to be self-reliant. The rights of individuals tend to take a higher precedent, and people often place a greater emphasis on standing out and being unique. And then there is the culture of collectivist. And so collectivist, we're looking at emphasizing a group as a whole, like what's the wishes of the group as a whole, what's the relationships, how do these decisions not only affect one individual but the whole in general. And so a lot of this is what you see like in cultures like Asia, Central America, South America, Africa. Then we've got social focus on promoting selfless and putting community needs ahead of individuals, working as a group, helping each other. People are encouraged to do what's best for the society, and families and communities have a central role. And so that is one of the things that really, really makes a lot of the cultures. And like I said, here in the United States, we are trained to be more of individualist. And if you look at the rules and you look at the law, I mean, even at mediation, when we walk in, when we do the opening statements is everything that is said here is confidential. You're not allowed to go and talk to anybody about this. You alone need to make these decisions. You alone need to decide what is best for you. And some of these cultures, it doesn't go with how their belief system. But I mean, our rules are rules. So, but something to consider moving forward. Now, what can you do, right? What can you do? What can the mediators do to do their job and really take into consideration everything that I've just really spoke about? I mean, really the best approach is just being non-judgmental, just being open to what they believe and why they believe it. It doesn't mean that it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean that what they're doing is right or wrong. It just means that it's just where they come from and their belief system. You have to understand, you have to know that they're going to be different. And really, it's just it doesn't really change. Your work as a mediator is you're still deep listening. You're listening. You're asking the questions. You're confronting the issues. You're reading their verbal and the nonverbal behavior and the ability to adapt to conversations. I mean, these are all things that as mediators we do anyways, to try to assess and try to help the parties reach an agreement. And it's just being open to understanding that everyone's different. So what is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate goal of culture awareness? And the ultimate goal is this terminology that, again, I learned while I was doing this presentation, and it's called isomorphic attribution. So basically, isomorphic attribution is that you are trying to attribute the meaning of and behavior of what the other person is saying to convey what they actually want. And what they actually intended to convey. So basically it has to be like a match, not what they're saying, what they're meaning, what their behavior is to what they actually want to do. And so to do that as mediators, we have to be flexible, we have to be adaptable, we have to basically imagine multiple scenarios of things that can possibly happen. We have to use our imagination sometimes, and things that might not seem normal or natural or this is what everybody does is something that we just have to be able to adapt to. And so the ability to be non-judgmental is basically forming a connection, having a conversation. And I like to say that I see that a lot in our mediators. I'm actually in a mediation right now currently that I'm hopping back into, but really it's just having that connection with the disputants that are in front of you, just being able to connect with them. And so we must, and basically, and I just put this, we must learn to self-monitor our interactions in order to compensate for bias and stereotypes thinking. So it's just being aware of ourselves, again, going back to that idea. So how do we get there? How do we start? How do we do that? And so it starts with awareness of ourselves, just knowing who we are. It goes with knowledge. It goes with enhanced specific skills. You guys being here today and being aware that this is a central topic that is important in mediations. I mean, you're already growing your knowledge. You're already trying to enhance your specific skills. And honestly, it's just a matter of like with anything, it's practice. Practice makes perfect. So you put yourself in situations, and you go through cross-cultural encounters, and you put yourself in those situations. And with every encounter that you have, you're going to learn and you're going to grow. So tools to use as you are navigating your mediation. So one, actively listening and without any judgment. I mean, that's probably the most important one. Being willing to recognize that their cultural lenses, so the other side's cultural lenses, and the impact that it has. Help parties identify and describe their world perceptions, beliefs, assumptions, and values as it relates to conflict and disputes. So again, that's just something that it's an open dialogue that you would have with the disputants that are there. And what is their perception of the issue? I mean, that's probably one of the first thing is why are we here? What is important to you? Why is this, what brings you to this point? And then bridge the perception gaps, and that is where you're going to go from room to room and just try to see if there's any way that you can try to bridge the what one party believes is important to what the other party believes is important, and trying to bridge that gap. And then just help both parties understand that different cultural viewpoints and impact in an attempt to really dispute and to resolve the dispute. And in that case that I was talking about, where it was one party, it was just really important. The money wasn't really what they cared for. They wanted a sorry, and a mediation. We were able to get that because it's a confidential, they didn't even want anything in writing that they were sorry. They just wanted to be told that they were sorry that something happened to their loved one. And that those words help the parties be able to move forward and try to finally reach a resolution. And then allow people to feel what they feel. You can't say that, one person, if they think that, they think that sorry is important, you can't really, that's what they feel. You can't talk them out of that. So with that, I know I tend to talk fast. So that's my culture. My culture, we speak really, really fast. But I think at this point, if you guys have any questions, I have one video if you want me to end with one more video.
I mean, if you want to do the video and then we will grill you.
All right, let's do the grilling and then I'll do the video.
Okay, let's do the grilling first. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so I do know you mentioned in regard to some cultures are talking a little bit louder once they get more emotional, and maybe they get flustered or something. So, and I do see that happening a lot, that all of a sudden another person in the room or the opponent then says, oh, he or she is screaming or yelling at me. And you have to try to explain to them, okay, it's not screaming. I think if they would be screaming at you, that would be very different. It's just the way they talk. And I do see that there are a lot of issues, people understanding that. So do you encounter that, and how do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, yes, addressing it, like, look, they are speaking loudly. They're not, as long as they're not being disrespectful or derogatory, that is a culture. However, we can't discontinue the other culture, right? The other culture is, I don't like to be yelled at. That makes me feel like, we're not going to get anywhere. So they both sides have to understand and try to come up with a way that they are able to. And for mediation, a lot of the time is just, we do caucuses, right? That's probably one of the reasons why is, at some point, either they're not getting along or they just feel intimidated. So we move them to separate rooms, and one person can yell and the other person can speak softly in their own separate rooms. But if they want to be in the same room, everybody has to be understanding and has to be aware that that's just their culture. That's just the way that they express themselves.
Right. And I mean, we always try, and you can't make anybody understand. So it's really like, okay, the other person has to be open for that as well. So that's one thing, and I think that is what you mentioned with awareness. So we all have to get better with that because we like to stereotype. I have to say, it's just that's how you grow up. That's how you deal with things, and that's what you've been taught sometimes. So breaking out of that, and I don't really want to call it comfort zone, but breaking out of that pattern is difficult. So it really, you have to make yourself pay more attention to that. And I know that this is difficult. And also with your example with the mediator, everybody else is speaking one language and talking in that language, and the mediator being in the room not being able to talk that language. That's also one thing that everybody has to understand. It can make a person feel uncomfortable if everybody else around them is talking in a different language, and you are the only person in that room who doesn't understand what's going on. And especially if it's getting a little bit more heated, and then you are asking, okay, so what is going on and what's just happening? And nobody is answering you. For a mediator, that's also not really a great situation because they don't know what's going on. So at least one person should tell the mediator, like you did, no, that's fine, everything is good. I mean, I do get it, as long as they don't punch each other, I think that's okay. But with any language, like maybe saying derogative words, I mean, if you don't speak that language, how can you know? If there are attorneys who speak their language, yes, okay, that's fine. They can make sure everything is okay. But what do you do if you have pro se parties and they talk all of a sudden in a different language, and you are asking them, okay, so tell me what's going on, and no one is answering, and all of a sudden one of the persons is crying or whatever, and you're like, I have no idea what's just happening. What is your approach to that?
Well, I mean, I think every case is unique, right? So first of all, if the parties are coming in and speaking a different language than English, most likely they have an interpreter. They have an interpreter of some sort. They have to speak to you, and they have to speak to you in English. And so a lot of the times what I've seen, and this is what I've seen, is that the mediator will stay there because, again, they just want to be like a neutral person. But they will say, like, at any point, if you don't want to have this conversation anymore, either of you can let me know and we'll walk away. If you feel uncomfortable, if you feel like this is going nowhere, walk away, let me know. We can still go to a different room. We could, if you need my help, for example, you maybe are close to an issue, resolving an issue, and you just need maybe a second opinion, stop and then come to me and then talk to me of what, what's happening. And so I've seen a lot of the mediators, when there's that neutral person that's there, like as the interpreter, sometimes they do have like those questions, like, are they okay? They seem to be speaking loudly, like as the interpreter, like, is everything okay? Like, do I need to step in here? And the interpreter, they're listening. You have to, right? You're all in the same room. It's not like not listening to what's happening. But yeah, so just making everybody aware ahead of time, like, fine, if everyone wants to sit here and talk in your language, that's fine. But at any time anybody feels uncomfortable, let me know.
Right, but sometimes the parties speak English and there is no interpreter present. So, but all of a sudden they start talking to each other in another language, which the mediator is unable to, like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. And no one is actually, after asking several times what is going on, then none of the parties is actually saying, okay, so this is what's happening, and I don't want to continue. So it's really up to the mediator making assumptions, which is not good in a mediation process, to see what is really going on there.
Right.
So, and I do understand, yes, we always respect the other party anyways. It doesn't, and this doesn't have anything to do with culture. So we always respect the parties, and the culture, if there's a different culture, is just on top of it, I would say, to make sure you are aware, okay, so this is what they are doing in their culture, and maybe this is okay, this probably shouldn't be in any culture, to really say, okay, what can we do here? But I mean, I do understand, and I appreciate you actually mentioning the Mother's Day and the International Women's Day. So I didn't know that. I mean, I know a lot of times, especially in the Western culture, it's Mother's Day. They all like the Mother's Day. So of course it's in every parenting plan, Mother's Day and Father's Day. So if you're not aware of any other, I would say, not necessarily maybe holidays, but special days. So you also need the help and assistance of the parties to let you know, because I mean, we can't learn all different holidays from all different cultures or religions. So it's also up to the parties to assist us.
Exactly. Yep. And then I think another point that I said is that a lot of the times, and you can only do the best that you can, and try to, and you're given 3 hours, and a lot of the times it feels 3 hours. Everyone, I know when I talk to my clients, they're like, oh, 3 hours, what are we going to do in 3 hours? I'm like, oh, we're not going to even touch most of what we need to do in 3 hours. We got to work on everything ahead of time, because 3 hours is never going to be enough. And so a lot of these things are, the attorneys are, should be addressing them. So when we go to court, we know, or mediation, we know really what's important. But in a lot of the cases for the mediators, you're right, you work with the pro se's. So you have the situation against some cultures, you can ask them, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Some cultures, that means that you're being disrespectful, so, and then all you can do as mediators is stress that, like, look, this is a process. This is a process of mediation, and this is what we're doing. And this is not a disrespect. When you ask me questions or you want things to clarify, need you to walk out of here knowing what you're doing and what you're signing. And so all you can do is, again, just have those dialogues, be non-judgmental, and just letting them know, based on your not only words, but also in your body language, that you're really there to listen to what they need and what they want.
Right, and I do see a comment from Robert Pritt. So he actually pointed out during his training, it looks like it's not just different countries. Our trainers for mediation training were all from New York and training at Nova in Florida. They made several disparaging comments about the bumpkins in the interior of Florida. I finally reminded them that some of those farmers had stayed in the Lincoln bedroom at the White House. So yes, I think there's also one thing, Robert, thank you for bringing that up. Even within the United States, you have different perceptions of the people depending on where they are coming from.
Right.
So that's one thing. And I do understand that it's difficult to put yourself in the shoes of another person, but sometimes we should really try to do that in order to understand what this other person might think or where they are coming from. So yes, I mean, and we do see it in mediations with pro se parties who never had anything to do with the court, who never went through any processes, and they just don't know what's going on. And that's not necessarily a cultural issue that is also within the United States, but I do understand it's more of an issue for people from other countries where it was used to, okay, so everybody or everything, every property, whatever they owned, was only titled in husband's name, because that is what happened in their culture. That is just not like, okay, it's not like we have a gap between women and men. It's just, okay, that's what they believe in. And in their beliefs, it's also, even if it's in my name, it belongs to both of us. So, and you have to explain to them, well, that's not how it works here. It's a little bit different, and you have to balance the line between, okay, so it's this much I can tell them and not giving legal advice, and then trying to not cross the line, giving them legal advice.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, hopefully a lot of them have already gone and spoken to attorneys and have gotten a little bit of knowledge of the law. But yeah, I mean, and going back to Mr. Pritt's message, yes, the culture isn't just regarding like countries that you're born. It's about any basically it's the way of life that people like live. So it could be like just, a culture of like the women, like women and men, or we have culture of religion, of certain religion, of the beliefs and the systems, that the ideologies that they believe in. And then here, like just the different, even within the United States, just the way that people perceive somebody that is from New York compared to like Florida, so it's not just aware of where somebody's born. And even then, even if you want to go into that culture, then even then that's different, right? So really, you can make yourself crazy and you're never going to learn everybody's culture and everybody's customs. But I think what you can do across the board is always just being not judgmental, just being open and aware and flexible.
I mean, that's what we are supposed to be as mediators anyway. I mean, we should be neutral, impartial. So it's like, okay, so you have to deal with the person that is in front of you, and you have to take the person as is and try to help them find a resolution. Sometimes it's easier with attorneys. Sometimes I have to say it's easier without attorneys, depending on the situation. But you always have to see, okay, so what does this person really want? And as you mentioned, sometimes it's not all about the money, but it's about, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you, or whatever happened between the parties. Of course, family law is a lot more emotional than something in regard to debt collection or in civil cases. But you also have probates that can get really emotional between the parties. So, and for a mediator, it's just really important to assess the situation directly from the beginning to see where everybody is coming from and what they are looking for. And sometimes, also as you mentioned, people don't like to really say what they think or what they feel. Others might just want to talk, and it already helps them, let them talk, and they can just make their peace to the other person in letting them talk.
Right.
So it's I mean, I know it's always a lot to learn for us, and we are always trying to be aware of cultural diversity. And sometimes I guess we just fall back into our previous scheme and our previous pattern. So we have to just make sure, okay, if I see someone who maybe is from a different culture or who just behaves a little bit differently, or even comes in with a strong belief of God, okay, so if this helps the person, that's fine. Okay, so what is your video?
All right, so let me stop sharing this. So this preface with is stereotypes, what you should not do. All the videos that I've showed her is what you should not do.
Ready? My wife is white. You didn't see that coming, did you? Yeah. Yeah. You can clap for that. That isn't a
Karla, you muted yourself, so we can't hear the video.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Here we go.
Ready? My wife
is white. You didn't see that coming, did you? Yeah, yeah. You can clap for that. That is an accomplishment. I noticed the differences when we went to visit each other's families. Ready? I don't want to say her parents are racist because that's such a strong word. But they did racist things. First time I met them, we go over to the house for dinner. Her mother runs up to me. She's like, "Oh my God, I've heard so much about you. So excited to finally meet you. Got a surprise for you." Runs into the kitchen, comes back out. She's like, "Guacamole." She didn't do it to be mean, but in my head, I was like, really? We're going to break a piñata too? What is this? But it goes both ways. We also noticed differences when she came to my house. She tried to impress my dad with her fancy education. My dad's old school, blue collar. He had no clue what the hell she was talking about. She sat there. She's like, I've got my BS in finance. I recently acquired my CPA. I want to go back to school, get my MBA. I want to have my PhD. My dad was like, oh, wow. I have HBO. GPS and TNT. I know drama.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. If you guys have any questions, I think we've got a couple more minutes. But if we don't, I think you guys are all doing a great job. Just the fact that you're here today and you're wanting to know about this and think that this is important, you're already crossing that bridge of culture diversity. So thank you so much for being here. Oh, and I
Thank
think that's CLE credit, so something will be sent to you.
Yes, thank you, Karla. So since no one seems to have any questions, then we will let you go because we know you're very busy. Unless, I don't know, Chat, do you have a question? No? Okay, good. Just making sure. So thank you so much, Karla. That was very informative. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us and educate us a little bit more about cultural diversity. I just want to point out that we have our next ADR section meeting next December on the 19th, and it's with Joseph Coleman, and he will talk to us about mediation in business cases. So please stay tuned for that, and we appreciate everybody for coming today and wishing everybody a nice afternoon, rest of your week. And if I don't see you before, already happy Thanksgiving. Oh my gosh, it's that time of the year. Thank you so much, everybody, and hopefully see you next month, December 19. Take all care.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Karla. Bye.